Welcome to Married AF. We are your hosts, Brooke and Randall Fowler. On this show, we discuss the topics that really matter.
Like big veiny cocks in our favorite TV shows.
So pull up a chair at our kitchen table and hang out.
While I bulldog my nuts.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to Married AF. Brooke and Randall in the house with our co-host, Rachel Miller. That's just what we consider you now.
Is that what you? Nice. Hello.
Yeah, we were discussing this, and we wanted to get your thoughts on it right off the bat. The guest of the year thing.
What?
We put out a thing where we're going to give a belt to the guest of the year for 2018.
Oh.
And we're going to have like multiple criteria and kind of average those three. There's going to be like three weights. One's going to be like number of downloads.
Mm-hmm.
One will be...
I don't know. You made these up on the spot.
Like what our opinion will weigh in as 1/3.
Well, as it should.
And then it was like a poll on Twitter.
And a poll on Twitter. That's exactly right. Thank you.
Sorry.
And we'll average those three together.
Well, but then we were like, Rachel
will murder everyone. And she's on, we almost consider...
I'm on all the time.
Yeah, we consider you like a co-host. So we're thinking we might just do a separate thing for you.
Oh.
Because, the other people that have been on like once, they don't stand a chance. That's the sad, like you're not, it would blow them right out of the water. But that was the first thing we talked about.
I have to be pulled out of the running for that. Because I just by pure, number of visits alone.
Volume, yeah.
Well, yeah, and we don't consider you a guest.
Well, and your episodes always do very well too, each individual one. So, like it wouldn't even be a fair contest.
Well,
I will gladly step out of that running, and we will let guests guess.
Well, it was like the first thing I said when Randall posted that. I was like, how are we measuring this? Because this is my operational brain. Randall's like, we're doing a best guest of the year, and I'm like, all right, we got to be able to measure this. It's got to be fair. It has to be not too
Brooke's
biased.
about all the details.
I know. I'm like, we need a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw all of it. I'm sure you did, as I remember a lot of the tweets coming out and you responding. But our last episode with you got a shit ton of compliments. Talking about the transgender and the pedophile.
Oh, yeah. God,
the non-offending pedophile got a lot of people were like, that was a great episode. And
oh, good. I'm so glad.
Such a good discussion, starting it right off the bat. So
good.
I thought it turned out very well.
It's not an easy topic for anybody, and so I think whenever there's a chance to have some open dialogue about that, I think that's good. And it always gives me a little bit of hope to hear that people are open to having slightly maybe different conversations than they've had before around tough topics.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And speaking of tough topic, I've got to jump right in and get your thoughts on Louis C.K. returning to stand-up. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
So how did you feel? Because I've been pretty outspoken about it, and I don't have any real legitimate facts to stand on. It just doesn't feel. It still feels too new to me, and I'm not a woman, so kind of want to get some other.
Well, and not just that, but let's talk about the way he did it. This whole thing is about consent, and he popped himself into a venue where people weren't even aware he was coming.
That's such a good point.
I didn't think of it that way either. That's so true.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
This whole thing was that you didn't understand what was appropriate and that you needed to ask for consent, and then you thought,
that's funny.
I'll just fucking show up. No, stay
Clearly,
home.
He's learned his lesson.
Obviously that whole concept of consent does not compute with him.
Well, you could tell that if you read his statement.
Just in general.
Subpar apology.
In general life. Yeah, because his statement was so flippant and
it was
just
vulgar. Even his statement was vulgar. He used the word dick and cock.
Right. It's he's
inappropriate.
He's got something there's just he's missing.
He didn't get it. And clearly, and if I remember in his initial now's my time to listen. They think that was him. Clearly, you did not listen.
Right.
Not in any sense that is useful. Like, not in actual active listening.
So
like,
he said, now's my time to listen. Like, but clearly nobody explained to him how that works.
right?
You're supposed to actually listen and, like, digest, think about what you're hearing.
Yeah,
he doesn't give a fuck.
We went into him a little bit on one of our recent episodes, and I was talking about how his allegations were a lot worse than people tend to think. People tend to give him like a pass, and in an attempt of, they say he's, that it's funny because they're like, oh, he just jerked off, right? Like, oh, that's, funny. But he actually kidnapped people. He would not let them leave his room. Right. And in my opinion, when that happens, that's terrorism / kidnapping.
Yeah, that's as bad as Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, I mean, it's not okay. And as soon as I saw the way he decided to return, I'm like, you clearly do not have any concept of what anyone has been talking about. You need to sit down for a long time.
Time out.
Disappear
You're in fucking time out.
For a long time.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. We keep waiting to see somebody do it right, and it just still hasn't happened.
Somebody that actually was guilty of something
I would just be happy to see somebody that was sincerely apologetic, right? And say Louis C.K., in my opinion, had he waited a little while longer and then because he's so big and such a big draw, if he did a huge special and every bit of the money went to like the Me Too movement, like every bit of it, every penny. He didn't make anything.
Even if it was all vulgar jokes about disgusting things.
Or if he just kind of came clean and talked about what he learned and how he was wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I don't think
that's the way to come out of this, in my opinion. And he just shit all over that.
I don't think he's capable.
Yeah, and now if he had any thought of actually making a comeback, I don't think he just set that back.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't get it. Like, talk about, like, completely oblivious to, like, social cues. Mm-hmm. Like, pay attention to the temperature of the room.
Right.
Like, the temperature of the room is people who commit, sexual harassment and sexual assault. Now is not your time. Sit down.
Right.
Learn your lesson.
It's definitely not your time.
Figure it out.
Maybe try and figure. I mean, he's got to make a living, But I feel like maybe standing up in front of a room full of people, telling jokes.
Well, I think you got to give the ticket buyers the opportunity to know who they're paying to see.
Exactly.
You can't just show up, because if that had been my money or your money,
and we talked about that, I think, too,
and Louis C.K. pops out and we didn't know, I would be pretty pissed. Like, I didn't want to feed his pockets.
I know,
I'd
feel pretty
I should have
icky.
the right to not pay his pockets.
Right.
Yeah, I'd have walked out the door. I'd have walked.
Yeah, but
I'd have said absolutely not, and I would have demanded a refund. Like, not happening.
Oh,
you don't get to take advantage of customers that way. Like, that's consumer, like, that's, what's the word I'm looking for? That's like
it's fraudulent.
Bait and switch. It's like bait and switch on consumers.
Switch,
like, no.
Yeah, that's on. Where did he do that at? Was that at the Comedy Store?
He was at the Comedy Cellar in New York City, which is a real small. That's his hometown.
Yeah.
So he just figured, I know the owner. They're not going to say no. Blah blah blah. But
I mean, I don't know what kind of press and outcry it got, but I don't know if maybe the owner is rethinking letting him sneak up on stage now.
I don't know.
I hope so. I hope so.
Like, hey man, we need to give the crowd forewarning before you.
Right.
I'm trying not to get shut down.
I mean, it's, these guys have got to learn that it's just a different animal right now, as far as
we've had
what
an
you're going to
actual
be.
Sort of. It's that whole, like, quote unquote watershed moment where the whole tone has shifted and what's acceptable has shifted. I mean, if you even look at politics right now, we have a potential Supreme Court justice who's being accused of sexual assault back in high school.
Yep, I've seen that. Kavanaugh.
20 some years ago, Anita Hill had a much more legitimate, I'll say legitimate. That's not really the right word, but a much more recent,
clear
issue.
with Clarence.
And that was blown off. But now this is actually getting conversation.
Oh, it's getting traction every day. It's,
Something that happened in high school?
yeah, a girl that he was seeing like in high school, and
they were dating?
no, I don't think they were dating,
No.
but they were at a party, and he did something and put her in a predicament similar to like Louis C.K., where she didn't feel like she could leave or something.
Oh my God. I mean, that's sucks, and clearly she's been
No, what that sucks though, and I've always been very honest.
statute of limitations.
That
Like,
happened.
isn't it?
That happened all the time when I was in high school.
It happened to me.
I'm just going to be honest. Everybody can be mad at me if they want to be.
No.
I'm not going to lie, but that shows how much we've changed. Because when I was in high school,
And
that
how old is
happened
this
all
person,
kind of-
Kavanaugh? Is that
He's older than us. He's probably might be
then
50,
Jesus? I
20
mean,
or 30 years, like Rachel was saying ago.
well,
Yeah.
it happened. I mean, I know it happened all the time. It happened to me multiple times. I just figured out ways to. I don't even remember their names now. at
Well,
this point,
first off, I've got to interrupt you, and we have to take. This is a perfect time to take our inappropriately named shot called the fire crotch.
I thought it was
Oh,
pole
jeez.
smoker.
No, this is a different one. This is rumpled tits and
Jesus.
cinnamon. So cheers, and hope we don't
God.
throw up. I hate it.
Oh my
Hate
God.
it. Actually, no, it's not that bad.
It's anything with that that cinnamon stuff
Cinnamon
overpowers it.
Okay.
Are we trying to find like an actual shot that we want to do every week? Like, is that what this is?
Now we're just realizing we don't like liquor.
Now we're just masochists
because we've never liked
at this
one.
point.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about Louis, because I'm obviously able to stay on track tonight when we were talking about
Clearly.
him hours ago, was how narcissistic is it of him to think that he can just pop on stage like that? Like, that's the
Right.
clear cut. If someone wants to know what
You
a
are so
narcissist
damn full of
is,
yourself.
if you want to know what one looks like, and you can't see it in Trump and other people in our community, look at what Louis C.K. did. That's what's a narcissist right there.
Like, dude,
Yeah.
get off your. I don't even know. Like, oh God, it's.
But what kind of people? I mean, he must just only employ people around him that encourage that.
Well, yes, of course you surround yourself then with people who feed that ego because you need
There's
it.
got to be somebody in his life that's been there since the beginning that should be like, let's just take a minute, dude.
Well,
Like,
narcissists get rid of those people.
even like
Yeah.
your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, immediately.
You can't have anybody who holds you accountable. That's not acceptable.
Only feed the beast.
Right.
Oh, yeah, because if you're trying to hold him accountable, you're holding him back. And you've
Yeah.
got some sort of agenda of your own, and actually you're the enemy.
You're
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Because we're just,
Fair enough.
I learned that growing up from family members. It's easy to spot. I can spot a real narcissist
You
Pretty-
yeah. Got it. Yeah.
pretty easily.
Yeah.
Well, so everyone knows we were talking this week. We said our topic was going to be infidelity, and good Lord. Just because we're not a huge show, and to get these kind of questions that are this honest, and God, everybody's cheating on everyone is how I feel.
Baby,
Oh.
if you didn't know that before,
I know, but it just makes me sad. It's crazy.
I just
You hope, but it's a snapshot. But
baby.
we'll jump straight into the first one, and that one's for you, babe, to read.
Okay. All right. We made a mutual decision to reconcile. Husband has made efforts to be more open, supportive, etc. But God damn it, I think I deserve a partner who isn't going to cheat on me. I'm having a hard time dealing with that at the moment, feeling like I'm settling for someone who just doesn't give a shit about me. Logically, I know this probably isn't true, but fuck logic right now. Just having a really difficult time. Feels like all the emotions came out of nowhere at once. Will it ever get better? That's a lot of
That is a lot.
words.
Yeah, but I can feel
But
her
it's
emotion.
yeah, like she's clearly so fucking frustrated and hurt.
Yeah. There's a lot there to unpack, and I think we sort of go back to this like every time I'm on, reminding people that clearly I am not this couple's therapist,
Of course not.
and clearly I'm not like, we have limited amounts of information, and so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I'm sort of, I have a lot of concerns if the piece that's really coming up, the thing she said that really stands out for me is I feel like I'm settling.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that says somewhere in there, you're questioning, like, don't I, like, do I deserve more? Do I deserve better? Which then has me wondering, like, are you, like, this relationship is having you question your self-worth.
Yeah.
And having you, in some ways, diminish yourself. And I don't know that that's the end all be all of everything, but I do think it's an important piece to sit with yourself around and be like, in some ways, life is short.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and I am not a person who doesn't believe relationships can recover from infidelity. But if it's chronic infidelity, or it's this thing like where you're beginning to sort of have these really negative feelings about, you know, how you're being treated, that's concerning for me. Like, as a therapist, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we need to talk about why do we want this relationship?
Right.
What is it still bringing to the table? What about it is still worthwhile? And you know, and if you're doing, I might even in a situation like that recommend some like individual therapy to figure out for yourself what you really want.
Yeah, that's what I was like. What jumped out to me was she made it clear that he is making the efforts. He's being more open. He's being supportive. So obviously he's trying.
Right.
But her saying, but God damn it, I deserve a partner who isn't going to cheat on me. And her points, to me, it almost feels like he's trying and she's like, you know what, fuck that.
But she's already given up.
She's already like checked out, and which is fine. I mean, I can't say anything. I've divorced. So
yeah. And I mean,
and you can make that call. I'm not judging anyone that makes that call.
That statement that you said, feel like I'm settling for someone. I feel like if she's gotten to the point where she's saying that already, like, or she's saying that, not already, but like, if she's already got
it's a big word.
It is. I mean, and
it's heavy.
It's very heavy. Like I literally can like that sentence, like I can feel it in the bottom of my stomach, like how that would feel. 'Cause I mean, I don't know. Oh, man, that's tough.
Right. And let's be really honest about this. It's not like there is a guidebook for how to recover from infidelity, right? Like,
but you
follow these steps and it's all better. This is why you go get help, right? Like, this is why you go talk to a therapist, because they can help you sort of, you know, give some space to those feelings and those emotions and see if they really are just something that's passing and at the surface and you can work through them. Or if they really are so lodged in that this partner couldn't, like, they're not able to recover from the damage that's been done.
And that's okay, right? Like, if that is the...
But they just need to make that decision and move on with their lives and not try and...
Or they need to really they both need to be putting in the work, right?
Yeah.
Like, both parties be willing to look at, how do we heal this? How do we rebuild trust? And you know, there's lots of different, you know, tools and techniques that therapists have to help with those kinds of things. But this is one of those times you get help.
Right. Oh, for sure. That one just screams and, you know, because it's like, it sounds to me like he, you know, because he's trying to put the effort forth. He at least wants it in this moment to work. And she seems like she's almost already kind of in her mind given up and trying.
Part of it, she doesn't trust him.
Right,
like,
which is fair. Totally fair.
There's clearly like, I don't trust him. And yeah, he's trying. I'm imagining in my head that for her, it's like, okay, he's trying for now.
A day late and a dollar short.
Is he trying enough?
Yep.
Like, and I don't know. And does she even believe that trying is genuine, or if it's just a stopgap measure?
Is he trying now because he got caught?
Yeah,
and that's the only reason. Like, and why is he trying? Like, what's the fucking point? Because he's just going to do it again.
Yeah, my biggest question, that if I could ask them one thing, it would be, how long ago was this? Because it sounds really fresh, and if it is really fresh, then her feelings are even more justifiable, right? Like, if it's only a month out, he's just going to have to ride that shit out and let her be mad when she wants to be.
They still need to probably go talk to somebody.
Of course,
like,
absolutely. But at 1 month, she's going to be much more hotter than, you know, time heals wounds. That is true. I mean, to an extent, she'll never forget, but
No.
Right. And in the beginning, like after that sort of betrayal in a relationship, there's, in some cases, the partner's response, the partner who's been betrayed, is some of those symptoms look just like PTSD.
Right.
Right? Like there's all kinds of ruminations and flashbacks.
It absolutely could be.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things. Like there's so many, it really is the similar symptoms in those moments. And that takes time to sort of figure out how to maneuver. And that's why, like when I said, sometimes individual therapy is really helpful in addition to couples therapy, because you need help with how to like manage those kinds of really overwhelming emotions.
Navigate your own shit in your head.
Right.
Yeah. Because it is. I mean, that kind of thing is earth shattering. I mean, that's your,
Absolutely.
Well, everything you thought could be wrong.
For your whole world. Yeah. I mean, because my whole foundation of my life and my happiness is my marriage to Randall. So I mean, fuck, I can't even.
No, this whole conversation makes me feel terrible because it makes me in the shitter.
I'm like looking at you like I just get like we're
No, I mean it sucks. But what I was gonna say is, or ask you, Rachel, is would you ever see a couple that maybe came in and were having this kind of a problem? Since obviously you're not this person's therapist, but we're trying to help as much as we can from here. Is it a tactic to sometimes say, you know what, actually, it may be good for y'all to take some time apart, like a little bit, like separate, not immediately reconcile? Or is that stupid?
You'll get differing points of view on this one. Like different therapists have different stances on that. For me, if you have relational trauma, you're not healing that relationship when you're separate. It doesn't mean that the individual doesn't need to get some help on how to manage their emotions and do some individual healing, but you're not healing that relationship. Maybe hypothetically, if I had concerns about violence, I might tell them to that we need separate space right now.
Yeah, but we don't.
But most of the time, it's we've damaged the relationship and we're not rebuilding trust when we've separated, right?
Well, yeah, and that's a perfect segue into question 2, actually. You saying worried about violence.
You're so good at this, Rachel.
I want to make a point for listeners to listen to this. As I read through these and picked out the top 10 questions, and I'm not a pro, so I may have picked the wrong ones.
I don't see anything about violence in this one.
Well, listen to the tone.
Okay.
If you listen back to these questions at the end of the episode and listen to how the men ask the questions and how the women ask the questions and look at the aggression level.
Oh, I was about to say the women.
It's palpable.
Oh.
Like listen to this one from the man. My wife cheated on me and we are working through it, but she often uses a victim mentality to justify her sucking another man's dick. This is not acceptable to me, and I have laid down a requirement to her that moving forward, if she fails to own up to her sucking a random guy's dick as her mistake, I will end the marriage. Am I out of line? That's a mouthful. He is slightly perturbed.
But it's so...
His pride is destroyed. I can tell you that as a guy.
But that's how guys express it. I mean, like this other girl, the girl from the first question, I feel like she's like, it's just all emotion, like inward kind,
Her heart hurts.
Yes, exactly.
His pride is fucked up.
His fucking ego hurts. Yeah. All right, Rachel.
Well, and this is something I've worked with couples on before, particularly when we have a woman commit the affair, because there's this piece for men around what does it say about me?
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
That my partner cheated on me. Clearly, this is, about me. And this thing you did has destroyed in some ways my identity of what it means to be the man in a relationship.
Yeah,
and I don't deny that betrayal is betrayal, right? But what happens for men is a little different because of the way we define masculinity, what the expectations are for men men are allowed, like, I don't want to say allowed, that's not really the right term, but when men cheat, it's A, more expected, it's B, more socially acceptable, C, there's less judgment on women for choosing to stay.
It's less emotional on their part.
Well, every bit of what you
Right?
just said, Rachel, will be proved in these 10 questions.
Yeah.
She just nailed it, and she hasn't seen these.
She just
but that's
summarized
absolutely
everything.
true.
But isn't it also more like it's the reason that women are able to forgive men for it is because it's not usually an emotional connection.
Or is that a wives' tale that we've been fed
That's a
as a
wives'
part
tale.
of masculinity?
Totally a wives' tale.
Okay.
Men cheat for, similar and different reasons than women. It's not, there's this sort of myth out there that men cheat for sex and women cheat for, for emotional connection. Not always the case.
Well, yeah, because everybody's different. So it makes total sense when you say that.
Yeah, but it is sort of the dominant narrative around what we feed to the community, Well, for men, it's just sex, because then it's also A, it's more acceptable for men to cheat, but also B, it's more acceptable for women to stay.
Well, it's in
because it wasn't really about you. It was about, it's not that you're a bad wife. It's just that, he likes to sleep around.
Yeah,
It's
I still
about
love
that.
you. I still love you, honey, but it's in my DNA. I'm a predator.
You
I
aren't
have
giving
to-
it up much.
I have to
enough
hunt
for me.
Right.
and
Yeah.
spread my seed because it's in my DNA, honey.
Well, no.
No.
I mean,
It's not in yours. So when you suck that dick, we're done.
No, and I say that, but I know that you like sex is not just a physical thing for you, babe. Like,
God no.
yeah,
Right.
everything is like tied to emotion. Everything.
But so much of the judgment that we either have towards ourselves or towards our partner, what we're worried about, like what will other people say? Like what will people say about me if they find out that my wife cheated on me and I decided to stay?
And
Yeah,
I
my
forgave
buddy-
her.
It makes me a putz.
Yeah, my buddies are going to call me a pussy.
You got it. Yeah. And that's problematic when we're trying to heal a relationship. But it's also something worth deconstructing in therapy. Like acknowledging that stuff plays a role. Like we love to think that we're all these like individual people. We all the society we live in trains us.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, but what about his comment on victim mentality? Like putting the blame on her.
Well, no, I think what he's saying,
For-
and we could be wrong, but the way I see it is she may have said to him something like, I only did it because you're not paying attention to me
Well,
enough.
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like
And
she
so
was
she's
she was
playing
trying
the
to turn it
victim.
around
Oh,
on
okay,
him.
I misunderstood
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like she was trying to turn it around on him. So, but I mean, like, but then he was just taking that and, it was just fueling his fire.
Oh, I think that would for anyone. If you cheat and try to flip that on somebody, it's going to definitely not go over well.
Absolutely. And I know that plenty of women who have done that would use that card. Like, well, if you would have paid, but like, hey, bitch, why didn't you just
Tell him you needed more attention.
talk to your husband about it before going off and cheating on him? But I mean,
Well, what I thought was the most moving line of this, Rachel, and I wanted to get your thoughts, is when he said,
there's a whole lot
this
of
is not acceptable to me, and I have laid down a requirement to her. When he says that, he's trying to reclaim his dominance. Right?
Well, I mean, yes and no, I think in part because when you're the person who's been betrayed, you do get to set up some rules.
Oh, sure.
Because now it's how you start to feel safe again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's how you start to rebuild. Like I'm not okay with this, and I do think there's not necessarily there is a piece around if you're the person who's betrayed your partner, you do have to take accountability. You have to take accountability for the action. You have to take accountability for hurting your partner.
You got to submit a little bit.
Well, you got to be honest.
And
Yeah. If there's ever going to be hope.
I think it's a little it's a step further than honesty, and it's more about transparency.
Yeah.
Like we have to be more transparent about, the actions and the person who's been betrayed really does sort of kind of have to dump all the cards on the table, right? They have to be willing to sort of answer the questions to the partner
everything that's bothered them. Yeah.
Oh, no, I agree. They need to sit on the hot seat and
Right.
take every question, even if it's What did his dick look like? What did it smell like? What did it taste like? Was it bigger than
there's
mine?
There's limits around that because some of that actually isn't helpful.
It's harmful. It is.
Yeah, but do you think it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Get some of it out, right? Like if you don't ask the questions, then it's not going, because that's the stuff they ruminate on, right?
If it's the stuff eating you up inside, yeah.
And how do we open that stuff up? In asking, like, is me asking this question actually going to be helpful, right? Like, is knowing this answer really going to give me comfort, or is it potentially just going to make me feel shittier?
It doesn't matter though when you're in the moment. It doesn't matter. I guarantee you. Like, but that's why you need somebody like you, like a moderator. Right. This is why you go get help. And I think there's also this piece around, at some point, some of this, whether if you're going to stay, there is a place where you sort of have to come to a realization that I'm choosing to stay, which means I have to be willing to move forward. Right.
That's
what
huge.
The time frame is for that can vary for everybody. But in some ways, you as the person who is agreeing to stick with it and try to heal the relationship and forgive and move forward, then you also have a responsibility to say, I can and am willing to work towards moving past this. We can sit in that angry sort of, spinning our wheels kind of phase for a while. But if we stick there forever, the relationship is going to be stuck. It's not going to move forward in a healthy manner. And you have the ability to make a choice. It doesn't mean it's always comfortable or that like the affair never comes up or, but if you're continuing after a period of time to use it as the weapon, then I have serious concerns about the relationship for the long term. In the beginning, it makes sense, right? Like we're trying to heal, we're trying to get answers, we're trying to understand like how we got here, and we're very hurt and all of that makes sense. But eventually, if the goal is to heal the relationship and move forward, you have a choice to make. And the choice is am I going to forgive this person in front of me or am I not?
Yep.
No.
And that's
that
is the ultimate question.
Yeah, and that leads into question number 4 perfectly for you to ask.
Well, it's really the third one. It is number 4 on your piece of paper, baby.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. Third overall, but number
classic
4.
Randall. He'll write a bunch of shit down and then go all over the place. Okay. I love you, baby.
Going with the flow. I go where the wind blows
all right.
us.
So, my husband had an affair. We are still together. I can't help but feel like I'm in limbo, worrying that he is going to say, fuck this, I'm out. He has not done anything to make me feel this way except the initial infidelity. How can I stop the anxiety?
That's hard. This is one of those things where if it's been a while, like if I'm working with a couple, and we've been working on the relationship for a while, and the partner who's been betrayed is still really struggling around anxiety and anger, or even like PTSD type.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds just like, it really does sound like that to the victims.
In a lot of ways it is. It's so similar. I see even to like nightmares happening and things like that. Like you'll see really similar symptoms. If those are continuing and they are starting to get to the place where they're really preventing us from doing good couples work, I will a lot of times send them for individual therapy. Because you just need a place to process that where it feels safe. And the problem with the relationship, like when you're trying to do that in the relationship, is it's like, I don't want to make them feel worse, but I feel really bad and I don't know what to do with that feeling. And if I bring it up, then it's possibly going to be a fight, and I'm not trying to do it to be a jerk. I'm really struggling and I don't know what to do with how I feel. And you need somebody to talk to about that. And it'd be great if you had a friend that you could talk to about that. But a lot of times couples keep this a secret, right? Like it's not something that all your friends know or your family knows, because if you're staying, the last thing you want is people talking about your relationship all the damn time because, oh, did you know so-and-so cheated and now they decide to stay? Can you believe she stayed? Oh my God, why would you stay? I'd never stay. Like People do all that kinds of crap. And so a lot of times it's that isolation that becomes really, really difficult.
Well,
because these couples are alone in this secret that they have. And, therapy is great for to work with the couple, but sometimes that's not always the space to work on all of the individual stuff that's going on. And so an individual therapist can be a lot of help around that.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If we go back to, we'll call him Dave on question 2, where I was saying if he really needs to ask somebody what the dick looked like, what it tasted like, what it smelled like, if that's what he needs to ask, isn't it fair that he get to ask it, even if it's to a separate therapist? He shouldn't have to keep that bottled in, right?
I think you'll have different therapists take different approaches for that, but in general, the sort of some of the common thought around that is yes, the betrayed party gets to ask the questions, right? They get to ask all the questions, and with a therapist there to moderate some of that, they can sort of say, okay, talk to me about why knowing that might be helpful for you. Talk to me about and so it's not just the person who betrayed on the hot seat the whole time, just taking question after question, interrogation style. It can actually be more about what's helpful. But yeah, there's a period where they get to just ask questions. They get to try to dig through the, I don't understand. I need to just ask all the questions, because if I don't ask the question, my mind runs away with me. Mm-hmm. Right? The things you make up in your head are often worse than whatever actually happened.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, me personally, knowing what the dick smelled like, looked like, tasted like, would just torture you more.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For my craziness, it would just make me worse.
And
I would be unbearable anyway. But.
Right. Well, in therapy, somebody can talk to you about, why does it feel important to know that? Talk to me about what it is you're hoping, what insight are you hoping to gain from asking that question? Is that something you really want in your head? Sure. And sometimes for some people, because their own imagination is way worse than anything the other person could say, you go ahead and you answer the questions. But a lot of therapists will sort of make those decisions in the room at the time. But yeah, there's definitely space for the questions. I don't really like this term, but there are consequences for cheating and then trying to decide, trying to salvage a relationship. And some of that is transparency. You have to be able to come clean.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with having to sit on the hot seat. Now, I'm with you. I think it should only be you can't do that 5 years down the road, hot seat them again, an initial hot seat, but
yeah. And if you've gone through therapy and you really think you've healed you can't every time you fight, bring up the affair for the next 15 years. That's not a healthy relationship.
Gotta let it go. Hey. Yeah. If you're going to move on, you got to move on.
Yeah. Unless you're just going to leave, and that's fine too. If you're done, you're done.
But then leave. Don't just keep it in your pocket to pull out every time they piss you off.
No, we're agreeing. Right. All of us are on the same page.
Yep. No, we're going to fight now.
We're agreeing. And wait till you hear the aggression in this guy.
Are you going back to actual 3? That's going to be number 4.
Don't worry. You just keep track of your women questions. I'll keep track of my men questions.
I'm really intrigued that we've divided this by gender. It's very interesting
I know.
to me.
I didn't know he was doing that either.
Well, I just wanted to do it because I want everyone to see the tone difference. These guys are aggressive. Listen to this guy. And I'm not deterring from I don't know their situation. I would be a nightmare. So
Randall would be horribly. I can't even imagine.
I judge no one.
Yeah.
My wife made the decision to spread her legs for an ex of hers a few months ago. I agreed to work on it, but it has become clear to me that I will always consider her a whore in the back of my mind. I still love her, and we are a great team. Jesus. We still have great sex. We have fun together. And we're great parents. But as a person, I now consider her foul.
You just called her whore and foul.
Foul is the most aggressive word I've ever heard.
How the fuck is he saying that he still loves her and has fun and they're still great?
Explain that to me, because I don't understand how that's possible. If you are seriously questioning this person's character and you truly believe those things about this person, those don't coincide with love.
Oh, exactly. I
at
mean,
her
I got
with
one more.
disgust.
I got one more sentence on it. And
Oh,
then
you
I
didn't
wanna
read
dive
it?
in. No, I'm not. He's not done.
My God, he's not done.
I see no other option but to leave, because despite her whorish decision,
Oh my gosh.
she deserves to be with someone that doesn't look at her with the disgust that I do at times.
Oh
I guess I just wanted to vent.
my God. Okay.
Well, I hear that, and this is also really new, right?
Sounds like it.
This is,
yeah, just a few
this
months.
sounds fresh, and so I can acknowledge and sit in that space where there is a lot of anger and resentment and pain, like lots and lots of pain.
Clear
You can
pain on this one,
hear it.
Rachel.
Obviously.
Clear pain.
Right.
Jeez.
And what's easier to grab than pain? Anger.
Oh, for
Right?
sure.
You grab anger because it's so much easier to grab than sitting in that place where, oh my God, I hurt so much. And it's way easier to call names, and it's way easier to point out character flaws than it is to struggle with this fact that someone that I love isn't the person that I thought they were, or are they? Because here's something else to consider around this. We do this a lot with children where we say, like, they're not necessarily a bad kid. They do bad things, right? You hear that in
Make stupid
parenting stuff all the
decisions, yeah.
time. Like children behave badly. The behavior is bad. You're not supposed to ever like call your children bad, right? In some ways, I think
my parents did that a lot, Rachel. She's not a bad kid. She just makes really stupid decisions.
Right? They just do stupid shit.
Yeah, so I can totally relate.
And like, if I have this, like, if this guy's in my office, I'm gonna ask if we can potentially pull that apart, and I'm gonna say, you know, I'm gonna want a greater understanding of tell me about this person that you love, and help me make sense of the things you love about them and who you believe this person is. And is it possible that this person you love is still there and this is just a thing they did, not who they are?
Right. It doesn't define them.
Right. It's defining the moment because there's so much hurt.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't define them, but it is pretty fucking huge in both of your lives.
Well, I want to go back to what Rachel said, because I think it's a good point. She said it really early. We, as from the outside looking at these questions, we're like, you know what, that's quite aggressive. But because everyone is trained right under how we're taught what being a man is, and
right,
you can't untrain that in someone that's had that their whole life. Like, our best chances of fixing that, of course, is with our young men and teaching them that things are different than how we were taught. But so someone does have to give some credence to their feelings, even if they're this aggressive, right?
Well, I think you don't. Look, emotions are, right? I'm not necessarily somebody who thinks emotions are good or bad. They just are. But emotions also come and go like waves, right? So they're very often I see with couples.
Try to tell Gunnar that.
It comes in, right? Like there's this. He said it, right? He said, I just wanted to vent. There's no outlet for what to do with this.
Right.
He needs a space for this
a therapist.
To go. Otherwise, he's going to like lock it. Because when you start trying to shove down those emotions, then they tend to come out in really unhelpful ways.
Well, do you know how bad you have to have a disgust for, as a man, to call a woman foul? Like, just me.
And your wife.
But just the word foul.
And if it's your wife. That's even a whole nother level.
But
like,
just that word is so good. Like, it's
like cunt. It's like real dark.
And here's the thing. In that same sentence, and this is truly, it's actually a really good example of how much people who've been cheated on struggle.
Yeah.
Because the emotions are so big and they're so painful, and you're really trying to wrap your head around who you thought this person was. And what does it say about me that I was in love with someone who could do this to me? And you're trying to make sense of all of that. And all of that stuff is true at the same time, right? Yep. Like, which in some ways goes against the thing I said earlier about, do you really love that person? But I think it was much like Randall, my initial response to sort of the really harsh tone.
Yeah.
But when I took a step back from that and went, wait, no, this actually makes quite a bit of sense, because this is somebody still really wrestling with, I don't know what to do with all of these emotions that are happening at the exact same time.
Yeah, like everything was okay, and then now everything's not.
Because what gives me hope for this guy, and I'm not a therapist, but what gives me hope for him, despite his tone, is he seems, as aggressive as he seems logical, because he does acknowledge we still have great sex, we still have fun together, I still love her, we're still great parents together.
Wait. I missed that part. So they do have kids?
Yeah, I left it out of I remember when he asked. On Twitter, I left the parent part out because I translated these.
Because I read that through that, trying to decipher if they had kids, and was thinking.
Yeah, they have kids. I remember he said they had 2 kids.
So that's a whole nother thing for me, because if he's thinking these things about his wife, right, like that she's foul, and
that's a rough one,
and that, you know, regardless of all the good things that he tried to layer in there, that's going to translate to the interaction between them when their kids are around. So, like, what kind of example are they setting for their kids?
Well, no, you're right. If they're doing that in front of each other and in front of the kids,
I'm just saying, like, that's just naturally, even when he's not trying to, like, outwardly express any kind of, like, I'm disgusted by you emotion, it's there. And the kids are going to pick up on that. And that's the part that concerns me, because it doesn't, that kids are super intuitive. And if there's any disdain between people, they're going to know it. There's going to be passive aggressive shit that kids are going to immediately pick up on. And that's what they're going to think relationships are. And that's the kind of unhealthy environment you're putting your kids in. So that's a whole nother level of, Jesus, get help.
And here's the thing too. If this were happening for months, years, whatever, I'm in agreement with you around that. This is still really new.
Oh yeah,
right?
This is just a few months.
This is a guy who, in the same breath, says, I think she deserves someone who's not going to look at her this way. That's my hope piece.
That's true. That is pretty powerful that he does want her.
That's my hope piece, because
he still cares about her.
Me, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he acknowledges that she deserves better than the way that he's looking at her right now. And the thing is he's so lost in this pain and in this anger and resentment and all of those things that are coming up, that he can't see that will ever go away.
Right. Oh, you can't. I mean, it's so deep, and like, I just can't even imagine.
No,
like,
I agree 100. I think Rachel.
So they just need to hurry up
one.
and try and get help, and
he should be able to vent, right? Like he said, he just wanted to vent. Maybe that's why I was trying to say to you, while I agree about the kids thing, you're absolutely right. And the coming out.
But it's more of a sense of urgency for me when there is kids involved, because it's like, you can't fuck around and just try and figure this shit out on your own when you've got little kids that are looking up to you guys as examples of what a healthy relationship is and nourishing their view. I mean, that is such a huge thing for me, because
that's totally fair and valid. But maybe go ahead, Rachel.
What I would add to that is, let's be real. Infidelity happens. Relationships are hard. What we can also show our kids is that we can recover from things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What we can also show our kids is that it's okay to get help when things are hard. We can also show them that, you can love someone and not always like them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there are pieces of this
For sure.
that in some way, it's not always unhealthy for kids to know that parents struggle. Relationships aren't easy, but how you choose to repair that damage and to work through difficulties teaches your kids so much too.
You're so
smart. Yeah, in a situation like this, go get help. Let somebody help you figure out how to maneuver this, and let somebody give you space so that you can figure out if you can heal from that. But the fact that you would say in this, and just like Brooke, like those words really just hit me, and I was like, whoo, ouch, holy cow, that's painful. But that's my, like, I'm a woman, and that stings a little bit. Yeah. But if I step back and go, okay, as a therapist, what am I really hearing here? What I'm hearing is someone who's really struggling with, I don't know how to make sense of this, because on one hand I hate her, and the other hand I love her.
I hate her because she hurt me so much.
I don't know how to look at her now.
Yeah, but I don't want her to be looked at like I'm looking at her.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but
which to me says there's something still there.
Yeah.
That maybe that you can heal from that, right?
So
and I admit it's totally me going from my initial like I'm a woman and I'm responding from that place, which is why I always remind people, like, clearly I'm not your therapist, because I would have already had that in check. I would not have done that in the space.
Yeah, no, you are so smart, Rachel. That's why we have you on the show, about the, like, being able to recover from, because clearly you can't expect to be perfect in front of your kids at all times. And we're fully guilty of that, like, bickering but then recovering, just minor things, obviously. But, like, this would be a perfect example of, like, you know, working through your shit and coming out the other end, and your kids being able to see that too.
Well, yeah, you have to. It's a fine line of teaching your kids not to be a doormat, but also to give people opportunities to correct their wrongs.
Like, maybe not call your wife a stupid cunt whore in front of them.
That's what I was trying to say.
For sure, don't do that.
Before you
Let's
guys
not do that.
Before y'all had your excellent points ahead of mine, I was going to say that I give him somewhat of a pass on his vulgar language in hopes of, and we're playing because we don't know this guy, and we're just trying to build discussion around it. But in my eyes, I feel like this guy sees this, sending this question into this podcast, as his chance to say what he's thinking, because he can't say it around his family and his kids, and he never would. And maybe it's helpful to be able to get it out. And maybe after he typed it, he was like, whew, I just called her foul. Better.
Well, and maybe he can talk to her about trying to go get some fucking help. Because that's, like, all that I see from this is, like, it's not going to be one email and he's cured.
Well, nobody is.
You know?
Right.
Like, it's going to needs to be discussed further.
And I also think it's really important for him to know that his feelings are pretty normal.
It's valid. Yeah.
Yeah, his feelings are pretty normal. They're pretty valid. I also
it's aggressive,
would
but
never
valid.
say that it's absolutely positively true that he will never be able to look at her the same way again. He actually might. There are lots of stories in the world about couples who recover from infidelity with relationships that are better and stronger than they ever were.
You said that in a previous podcast where it's like they recover, but it's like a whole new relationship. You're not, it's not going to be the same. It's not ever going to be the same. And that's what people focus on, is like, it's never going to be the same. Like, cool. Maybe it won't ever be the same. Maybe it'll be better. Well, and more, like, you know, maybe you can,
or maybe just different
and new and but good and healthy. And, you know, like, it's just because it's not ever going to be the same, that might not be a bad thing.
It's a lot of work. I mean, I commend the people that do it, because I read after Rachel said that the first time,
you see me?
months ago. Yeah. When she said that the first time, and she told us that people do repair, because if we're being honest, I'm from the camp that's like, no, you can't.
No,
but
I'm looking at Randall like, motherfucker, you're
I'm
dead.
coming along, and I see the value and the truth in what Rachel's saying. And so I went in and I've done some research between episodes, and I was actually reading some articles of people that have recovered from it.
Oh.
And they said literally pretty much the consensus is they had to remarry new people, like, get to know each other again and basically get remarried.
The commitment to do that, though, is
it's a lot.
But it's inspiring.
It's commendable.
It should be for these people, like that can happen. And you have to be super open-minded, and like you have to be willing to
let it go.
And you actually have to forgive, and
you have to be able to forgive.
No, that doesn't mean like it's not the whole like
doesn't
Bible
mean you're
adage
weak.
of like forgive and forget, but you have to forgive and really understand what that means, and be able to separate the thing from the person. And here's the thing. Loving someone is a choice you make every day. You're an active participant in that.
Absolutely.
It's not something that happens to you. So you can make a choice to love this person again. I don't pretend that's easy every day, but it's ultimately it is your choice to get up every day and choose to love Randall, Brooke.
It's absolutely.
It's easy.
So easy.
Such an easy choice.
That's what you tell yourself, Randall?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
I totally hear you. That's absolute. That's dropping a truth bomb, motherfucker, because it is your choice. Just like I tell people when people ask me for like workout advice and things, like it's your choice, your attitude, your what you desire to get done in a day. Everything is your choice.
Oh, yeah. And with a relationship, same thing. You have to wake up and choose to be in it and love that person and let them love you and everything. Like, I mean, it's
right.
It's a conscious decision.
You can choose to focus on, and infidelity is larger and heavier and more complicated. I'm not trying to make light of that in this comment, but you can make a choice every day to focus on the fact that they left all their shit on the bathroom floor every day and you're pissed off that they didn't do the dishes. Or you can remember that this is also the person who made your coffee this morning and, agreed to walk the dog because they wanted you to sleep in. Like, you can choose which of those things you give your focus to.
That's so true.
I mean, and it's the hindsight is 2020 is just crazy. Because like the shit that like used to make me want to punch somebody in the face and like where I'd be like, fuck this motherfucker. I hate him. Like Randall could do it 20 times over and I don't even bat an eye because it's like, there's so many more things that for one that he does for me and that I've just learned that like, it's not worth it. Like it's just so stupid to even like, so it's so you have to really like think about what's the point? Is this really going to make my relationship better? Or is it just going to make me a fucking bitch and I'm just going to be annoying him? And it's all calculated and like all decisions and it's work.
I can play
but it's good.
A devil's advocate to that using my personal experience, right? Like my divorce. If I could go back, and me and Brooke have discussed this before, like last time I was in the shower and she was in the bathroom and we were just talking about it. And I was like, if I could go back and change one thing, it would have been that I would have ended it sooner to avoid people getting hurt, right? Like just get it done. Once you're done, it's the right thing to, in my mind.
And he was trying to he thought he was doing things.
You got
for
kids
his son.
involved.
He had a kid involved. So he was trying to do things, what he thought was right in the time for his son. And then, as it got further into it, it was, but
you learn, right, that time heals a lot. It really does. Yeah. And so by delaying that time starting, you cause more hurt, or my experience. If I would have just
and we've seen other people do the same thing,
it would have healed sooner.
You've given people that same advice, like friends of ours that have started going through the process after you did. I remember you giving it to one of our good friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you were like, it was somebody that they had, you were like, if I could give you one piece of advice, it's just end it now instead of trying to drag it out.
Once you're done.
For your child. It was like somebody that we knew they were done. We knew it was over. It was like it was almost a mirror image of what Randall had done in his previous marriage. And he was like, the one piece of advice I can give you is just to end it now. And both of you can begin to move on with your lives and it will be better for your child in the long run that way. And it is.
Well,
and now
nobody
that person
wants to be the bad guy, right?
exactly.
Like, that's the thing. Like, because we tell this story about the person who ends the marriage.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
if we're talking about
it's the fear of
cheating-
like your dad left us or like your mom left, you know, like it's that
Right.
stigma, but it's not 1950 anymore. And everybody's still involved with everybody's family. It's not like, you know,
it's who's the person who ended the relationship. They're the quote unquote bad guy, unless you were cheated on and you leave. Then you're the smart one.
Well, but do the kids
right?
even need to know that is the real question.
Yes.
Like, really?
Here's the thing.
Even
I
when
don't
they're like 3 or
necessarily know
4
that
years
everything
old,
is
when
always
they
appropriate for kids, right? Like, it's age appropriateness
Yeah.
around this. You're not going to say the same thing to a 4-year-old that you're going to say to a 14-year-old. But I do have a problem with, you know, with people who pretend like kids who are older don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. I mean,
Right.
I told Brooke, right, and this is not news to anyone, or it shouldn't be, that my son was, I don't know, it's 4 or 5 when me and his mom were getting divorced and stuff. And I knew what I wanted language-wise and everything in our divorce papers because I knew that one day he's going to be old enough and he's going to find those papers, you know, when he's 18 or whatever. And he's going to see what was in all the filings. I mean, I've got friends that found that their parents had divorced, and we'll just throw this out there. The mother told their kids a myth that their father abandoned them, right? Or something. But it was really, once they found the divorce papers, they learned that he had fought for joint custody for years, couldn't fight in the court anymore, blah, you know, things like that.
Right.
Where if you are dishonest with the kids, this is where I'm agreeing with you. Kids
Right.
need to have a outline of the truth so they can form their proper opinions and be justified in their feelings, you know, going forward. So they don't have a skewed truth around both their parents.
Right. And I don't think it's healthy. I mean, I've heard about couples where like the mom drugged the kids downstairs and in front of their dad was like, you tell them why we're getting divorced.
Oh
You
my
tell
God.
them that you slept with that whore
Oh,
and
of
blah,
course,
blah, blah.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, not appropriate.
Bad
Not
call.
okay.
Bad call. Yeah.
Yeah, not good, not appropriate, not healthy. But pretending like children are clueless doesn't help them either. You know, and figuring out when things are appropriate to talk to your kids about and knowing your relationship. And look, get help around that, right? Like, I don't think you need to say to your kids, you know, your dad and I are having marital problems because he cheated on me, or, you know, your mom and I are having problems because she decided to sleep with her ex-boyfriend. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that you can tell them sometimes marriage is hard. You know, sometimes relationships are tough. And, your dad and I are having, we're working on that because we want to make sure that we can be our best for you guys, and sometimes it's tough and sometimes we don't always like each other, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other. It doesn't mean we don't love you. Right. Like you can do that kind of stuff because kids aren't stupid. They can feel the tension in the house.
Oh, right.
Of course
no,
they
they know something's going on regardless. And then
the dogs can feel the tension in the house when a divorce is going on.
John
And
knows
don't
when
kid
Randall and
yourself.
I are frustrated with each other.
And don't kid yourself. Kids listen. They're eavesdroppers.
God,
They
yes.
hear way more than you. I mean, how much of the stuff about your parents did you all overhear?
Everything.
Right.
Even when
same.
my parents were really good, and that's why I'm super critical. My parents never fought in front of us. Ever. Never.
I think we've talked about that, right?
Yeah.
That
They
you
would-
were like,
She's super lucky.
Never. It never once did they. I mean, they would maybe I could see my mom, they would tense up a little bit and then, but nothing else. But they would go behind closed doors. And I remember a couple times being outside their bedroom door because I'm super nosy as fuck. I would be ear to the door, listening to what they were fighting about, whether it was me or not.
Well, if you don't think every kid's doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fact that they even waited until they went, because I mean, when I grew up to be a teenager and then would be I a couple times got caught in the middle of some of my friends' parents having a blowout fight with like not only their kids around, but their kids' friends around. And I'd be like, this is super uncomfortable. My parents don't even do this shit. Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I would literally like I would like crawl into a hole and die rather than be there. And I can't even imagine what the children of those people felt like, oh my God, and my friends are over. Like, what's happening? So it's so damaging.
But I also think we sometimes, this whole like, don't stay together for the kids conversation that we sometimes have around, don't stay in unhealthy relationships just for the kids, because that's not always helpful either.
No.
Well, I agree with that. I would also caveat that with, that doesn't mean relationships aren't worth any work.
No.
And if you have kids, it is worth really sitting down with your partner and being like, can we be a family? Is this something we really want to throw away? Is this not salvageable? Because if it is, then we should put in the work. And, maybe we should at least give it a try. Now, I don't think that that's always the case. Nothing is always, or never. But I think that's an important conversation to have. If you truly somewhere underneath there love this person.
Right.
And you are like, this guy said, I love her. We're great parents. We have great sex. Okay. There's a lot of really solid things to give you a foundation on around that. So maybe that is worth putting in the effort for, right? Like,
right. Well, okay. So
you really have to be careful around making that decision. Like, don't jump.
Well, yeah, I mean,
without a parachute.
I went through like a couple of separations with my ex-wife before we were divorced, for years, even before I knew Brooke. And I remember one time we had, early on
before
Griffin, and we had tried like a therapist that saw us separately. And I remember the therapist was a really good therapist. And on my first visit with him, I don't remember why, but we were seeing him separately. And you probably know better than me, but, and that tells you I was already checked out. But he asked me when I sat down, the first thing he said was, Randall, do you want to be divorced or do you want to stay in this marriage? Or he asked me, do you want to stay in this marriage? And I couldn't answer him. And he was like, I can't really help you. Because he knew.
Yeah.
He knew right there.
Checked out already.
That's why, like, a lot of therapists will start you off separately to be able to ask that question.
That was before
because
Griffin?
they're sort of that
early.
Like, I can't help you if you don't want to be here.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I remember the look on a super nice guy, and I always respected that he went straight to that question.
Well, thank goodness you stayed together long enough to have Griffin.
I felt
that's all I'm saying.
For some reason, I couldn't. I had to. For some reason, luckily, I was honest with him, and I was like, I was so hesitant.
Right.
Just felt like such a big question. But when he didn't get the answer that he wanted, he was like, man, I can't.
I think that's that's a barometer, probably.
Yes, it is. It is. It's to, and then if that's the indication, then most therapists, a lot of therapists, depending on sort of their framework around this, if we've given you a scale of like 0 to 10 and you're at like a 5, they're going to have a different conversation about how do we talk about separating.
Where did you go from there? Yeah. I mean, like, how did you get back together and then make Griffin? Because I'm
the way I think
grateful that you did.
I think it just went that shortly after that, she was pregnant.
Oh, okay, good.
And then that, like any marriage, of course, you're like, maybe this will fix it.
It was a Band-Aid for a second because you're like, look at this beautiful thing
you
that we
come
made.
together to keep them alive for the first few months. And you don't pay attention to each other. You just pay attention to the baby.
Yes.
And then they get big enough and your problems are twice as bad.
Because you're like...
Because you're stressed out and you don't like each other.
Because you have a toddler and you... Yes.
So it's never a good idea, but that's just how it happened.
No, but...
But no, I mean, I felt it was fair to go to a therapist when asked to at least give them a go. When I went, I mean, this is so many years ago, my intentions were good, to see what was said. And that's just how it went. It was just quick. He was like,
yeah,
sorry, buddy. There's
Can't
not
really
a,
help
and then
you.
y'all, but I mean, like, I don't even know if therapy really, I know y'all did mediation for co-parenting, like when it was really going down. I don't know if y'all ever really even bothered with let's try and salvage this marriage after Griffin was
the biggest
born.
thing after that was time. Because I mean, we're in a good place with his mother and all of us,
absolutely, and that's what
and it just took time.
Yes, and I don't blame her. I mean, yeah.
No, I mean she's happy now. We're happy. It's great.
No,
but
right now it's great. It was.
That's why I give that advice for one, and I would tell guys that and girls that go to those. To Rachel's point where she said it's worth giving it the effort. I agree with what she's saying.
Yeah.
But to also be honest when that therapist asks you those questions.
Don't try and fake it.
Don't say it because your wife caught you cheating and you're like, oh shit, I got to say yes, I love this marriage.
And because you know that like that's what society wants you to do, or like that
because you're in the doghouse.
Your family wants you to do, like what you truly feel is what you should do. You want your relationship with that person, not that do you want to have your family unit?
There's already a lot of pain. Do you want to drag that out further?
Exactly.
If you're not really invested,
exactly.
Like you've already hurt this person a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
and think about that. That's the person, if you do have kids with them, that is the other parent of your child. Like that's, like that's the other factor is that do you want to just drag it out and make that person unhappy that's also raising your child? Like,
no, it's selfish. And that's why my advice is always so strongly to people that ask me now is when, and that's different for everybody, but when you know that you're out, you need to let them start healing. And as hard as that is,
be honest with
sucks.
yourself and
I'm guilty of not doing that plenty of times. But the only way for a positive way forward for them is to just start the process of healing, and they usually will.
And I think it also takes serious self-reflection and ability to sit with yourself and be real. Mm-hmm. And that's not always easy for people to do. And sometimes you need some help with that. And so, even couples therapists, if that's really the help you need, they can help you with that. Like it's not easy and sometimes you're not sure, and that's okay. And then getting some help to sort of pull that stuff apart and really get down to the bottom of like how you feel about those things and ultimately, what might be the best decision for you. But even the best decision for you might still be painful, and just sort of knowing that it's not always the least painful thing that's the best thing for you.
Yeah, you go to the last woman one, babe, is number 6 because the rest are all guys. We got way more guys.
No, and that
questions.
actually, I mean, yeah. So it's,
and we kind of hit on this one.
This is kind of goes along with what we were talking about. So Rachel, I let my husband move back in 1 month after his affair. He seems remorseful, but I do not think that people can change who they are at their core. Do you?
I guess this sort of goes back to that question of, do you believe that sort of crap we feed people about, like once a cheater, always a cheater?
Yeah, that's not.
I don't necessarily know that that's a defining factor for a person.
It's not.
We've talked about this before because, like, to me, people's behavior makes sense in context. So I'm always looking for the larger context. Like, if a person has a serial cheater, then I think even that can change? Yes, if the person's motivated to do that and the person,
if they meet the right person,
problematic for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into that, right? It could be self-sabotage. It could be unhappiness with themselves. Could be unhappiness. Could
so
be,
many.
You got people that probably cheat just to sabotage their marriage because they hate themselves for some weird reason.
And there are some people who cheat because they're really like, they don't know how to blow up the marriage any other way, and that's the way they figured out how to blow the whole thing up.
They don't know how to not have drama.
Well, no, they don't. They don't know how to say "I want to leave," so they just
or
they get caught cheating, so they get thrown out.
Or they don't know how to just be in a normal, healthy relationship.
Oh, of course, it could be any of those.
And they're like, "Oh, this is
some of that too."
Yeah. I know plenty of people like that. I'm like, you were totally
and that
fine.
would be my question for this listener is do you actually believe this is like his character?
Right.
Because that's not something that I believe. I don't believe that people are like they're born cheaters or they're
either. Yeah.
like that's just not really how I see it. I'm just curious as to what's behind the behavior, and I'm curious as to, what's happening for them that this felt like the thing they needed to do, and what were they getting out of it, and what was it accomplishing for them, and I also I look at what happens to families historically. Like lots of times when people are in my office, I go back and be like, so talk to me about your parents' marriage. Talk to me, because a lot of times, I don't know, maybe having a mistress was the thing that everybody's done in their family and it was considered normal. These are things that, and even that doesn't necessarily make them they're a cheater. It's just, that's what the quote unquote men in their family do. I don't know. I don't have the larger context of this, but I'm not someone who says once a cheater, always a cheater, because I don't think about it like that.
No, I think that sentiment is just false.
Yeah,
but a lot of people buy into that, and a
so
lot of
many,
people
yeah,
have had that experience where someone sort of has continued to cheat on them.
Okay,
so then it's very easy to say, well, it's just because they're a cheater.
No,
well, no. Let me go into this next question because that's perfect.
Okay,
I don't want us to ruin it. This one is flat out. Shit, actually, this is a woman's question. Sorry, number 9. It is a woman asking
on here, which
yeah.
is not number 9 actually. So don't count, people. It's probably number 8. My husband cheats on me all the time. At this point, it doesn't even bother me anymore. Oh, I have accepted the fact that men can't be monogamous. My question is this: do I have free passes to find a guy that wants to fuck me on the side?
Rachel?
Well, Brooke feels
I have
something about
lots
that,
of
she?
emotions about that. I just feel so bad for this girl.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
you can tell she's at the end of her rope if she's
yes,
like, can I get some dick?
I know. I just feel so bad for her that she just knows that he's fucking around, and I don't know. Okay, go, Rachel.
And then you can sort of ask, you can ask questions around what's in the relationship for her.
Right. What's she getting out of it?
Why do you stay? What's she still getting from that? And if this is purely a sexual thing, I'm not someone who says if cheating is the issue, we open up the relationship. But I'm also not somebody who says who sort of takes, consensual non-monogamy off the table. The problem for me is this wasn't consensual for her to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
This wasn't something they decided on. Let's have an open relationship. Different conversation. If she's willing to have that conversation, I would have it as a conversation.
Right.
Open up that discussion of, is it just about a lack of desire to be monogamous? I don't think it's men can't be monogamous. I don't buy that.
What's missing from our relationship that we need to work on to make you not go outside our relationship?
Well, if she's conceded to the fact that it doesn't even bother her anymore, I would imagine that he knows that she knows, and he probably even tells his buddies when they're out and they're picking up chicks, oh, my wife doesn't care. As long as I don't put it in her face.
No.
Or as long as I'm in a different zip code, my wife's cool with it.
Hey, by the way, this is question number 6 for anybody that's counting.
They're not going to count. Do you think someone's sitting there writing it down, counting?
Hey, weirdos like me.
But I do think this opens up the conversation around creating boundaries and negotiating these kinds of things in relationships earlier in relationships is helpful. Kind of like the Priory Society conversation, right? When they talked about how they introduced consensual non-monogamy into their relationship.
That's why I didn't jump into be swingers, because it's obviously you have to have a healthy relationship before you jump into that.
Right, exactly. And so I don't necessarily think that opening up the relationship is the cure-all for cheating unless they really are determined to stay together.
No, I was going to say, would it not be rational if maybe she wanted to say, or would it be fair for her to say, look, I know that you know that I know that you fuck around all the time.
Yeah.
And I love you. I want to be with you. But if this is going to continue, then I'm willing to consider us having an open marriage or whatever.
I think they would need to, they could maybe discuss that, but they would need to strengthen their own relationship first. It's strictly based on what we talked about with Eros and Isis.
They're great. They did it.
I mean, and
flawlessly.
I'm totally bought into their whole philosophy because it makes sense because they are so cute with each other and their whole approach is you can't be okay with watching your significant other fuck somebody else unless you are so solid in your relationship. And I'm like, oh, I get that. I am not okay with it in my healthy relationship, so I can't even imagine it. If you're even on rocky ground at all, you can't. I just maybe that would be something so future state, but you would have to really make sure your relationship is back on solid ground and work on.
Well, you have to tread lightly. I think it's a last ditch. I think what Rachel's saying is not conventional, rarely going to work, but I'm not going to say never.
But if that's if it's a last ditch effort, sure, just so
she can get her rocks off.
Purpose, right? What's the purpose behind it? Right? Is it well, if I'm, is it revenge? Then I'm not sure that's helpful.
Well,
is it I just really need sex too, and he's not giving it to me anymore, and I just need to go get some, and let the chips fall where they may? Well, I don't know that I'd recommend it, but it's not my decision to make. It's not my call.
Right.
I don't live your life. I don't have to pay the ramifications for those, actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would also question, why do you want to stay? What are you staying for? And look,
what's the benefit?
I don't pretend that financial security.
I was just going to say that, Rachel. You read my
a certain lifestyle don't sometimes put women and men in positions where they're like, but I'd rather stay.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not judging that.
I'd rather figure it out and stay.
I like my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I like the life I live. And if that's the thing I have to put up with so I can have the life I like, then I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know. I have zero judgment around that. I don't live your life.
But maybe some people like that will try and figure it out and then eventually become happy, maybe. I'm an optimist, but maybe.
No. Good question. I don't really have
Well,
I don't have good examples for that.
Is that a motivator to actually become happy? I don't know. I want to believe it.
Well, I want to go this number 10, which is actually number 7 for Brooke. I think we should
for actual numbers and counting.
We should end on this because it's gonna put us a little bit over an hour and a half.
Yes.
And it's a crazy one. Super interested in Rachel's take on it.
Okay.
And then we'll go into what we've got recommendations on what people want to cover next month with you.
Oh, okay.
We actually had a couple people ask for subjects, so I want to run that by you. This one is, I'm worried about my wife's mental state.
Ugh.
She has had multiple affairs. She always comes clean to me right away, and then she sleeps like a baby. She has told me that she only lets her lovers enter her via anal sex, so in her mind, she is not contaminating her vagina, because that is just for me. When I express my anger, she looks at me like I am crazy. What should I do?
Come on now. This is real?
Yes, this is... Who could make that up?
That's...
Lets her lovers enter her only anal?
That's
that.
Nuts.
There's some maybe a little off.
People have lots of rules around that stuff.
I know.
People who do consensual non-monogamy have lots of rules around this stuff. I'd be curious if she's ever had an open relationship before, if she's practiced polyamory before.
There you go. That sounds... Because she's like...
I'd be curious... Yeah, somehow this rule makes sense to her, but doesn't make sense to him. And so this, to me, says we go get some help about renegotiating this. I don't know that there's... I wouldn't be concerned necessarily about her mental state. I think she just
No.
has different rules for herself.
This
And
is
I'm
okay
wondering where those
in her
came
head
from.
somehow. Like she's
Well,
like,
clearly, if she
she's
sleeps like a baby,
yeah, she's like, I got fucked in the butt by so and so. Night night.
how was your day, honey?
But also, part of that is she's alleviating any guilt, right?
For
So
sure.
the problem then has become his problem, not hers.
She's unloading it on him. Like, okay,
Yeah.
have a good time with that, honey. Nighty night.
Right. Like, I'm
see you in
totally
the
fine.
morning.
I
Yeah.
can clean. I'm good. And so this to me, like, call the therapist.
Right.
Like, tomorrow.
That needs some.
Call the therapist.
Yeah,
Some
and
therapizing,
actually,
for sure.
it does lead into another one. So I'm going to ask. We'll go to 8, and we'll be done.
Okay.
Because Amy Lyle actually made this point on when she was on last time.
Okay.
And this one dives right into it. I've cheated on my wife twice, and she has no idea. Mm-hmm. The guilt is killing me. I want to tell her, but at this point, is it selfish to dump my bullshit on her and destroy her just so that my conscience can be clear?
It's like the exact
age-old
opposite.
question, right?
It's the opposite of this other woman who was like unloading on her husband. This guy doesn't want to unload on his wife.
And Amy Lyle had told us, obviously it was funny, when we had her on last time, somehow this came up in a fan question. She was like, I love my husband. I'm going to be with him forever. If he cheats on me, I don't want to know. Don't dump your bullshit on me.
I know. I was floored by that.
And ruin my day and life.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Oh, and I was like, what?
No, I mean, so the thing is all he's trying to do here is alleviate his own guilt. That's about
Exactly.
you. Go to therapy. Go deal with your guilt that way.
No, when you think about it that way, it's brilliant. I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. Because, I've always thought the other way. Like, you have to fucking tell me.
No,
but then
it
I'm
does
like,
make you
why?
kinda change-
All it's going to do is make you feel better and make me feel
Worse.
like dog shit for no
Right.
reason. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Technically.
No, you sit with your stuff. Like, you sit with your stuff.
Yeah.
That's the thing you did. Like, that's the thing you did. You go find yourself a therapist and go work through your own guilt, through your own stuff. Because what's your goal here?
But why? So, like, as a therapist, though, would you not want to immediately dive into, so, like, why are you cheating on your wife? Like, what's the problem with that relationship?
Well, I mean,
Why don't you want to
that's
address
the other
that
piece
first?
around that.
Address
Right,
that first before trying to unload your fucking guilt on her.
Well, like, you did this thing twice, and you're carrying guilt around that. Like, go work through your stuff. Go figure out what was going on for you. Go work through that
in your marriage.
Right. And I would probably also, recommend couples therapy. I don't necessarily think that that's the thing you dump in couples therapy, but clearly the relationship needs some work too.
Don't be like, hey, we're in couples therapy. Surprise!
But
I cheated on you.
this is my point on that. From his question, what I take away is that in his wife's eye, everything is beautiful because she has no idea. And so he doesn't want to like ruin her by even bringing it up.
Right.
And so if they started like couples therapy and she's, slowly told that her marriage has been a hollow shell.
I feel like that's bullshit though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let me finish. Because my question to Rachel is, if a man comes in to see you, like without this question, if I come in to see you, Rachel, and I'm a new patient, and I'm like, God, Rachel, I fucked around on my wife a couple times and I feel like shit. She has no idea. I love her. She loves me.
Rachel's like, move out. She's going to kill you.
And I need to I need to unload this on somebody so I feel better. But in her eyes, everything is fine. Would you be like, honesty is the best policy. Tell her tonight. Or would you be like,
no.
let's.
No.
So it is possible
we're
that
gonna sit with that for a little while. We're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna deconstruct what happened. We're gonna look at, well, in part because at that point, that person is my client.
Right.
The relationship isn't my client at that point. Not that I don't always consider the relationship, because I do, but at that point, my primary focus is the person who's in this space, who's clearly needing some help around working through their own guilt, shame, other stuff, how we got to that place. And if he can get to a place where he's where he's feeling better and this does not seem to be a behavior that's going to repeat itself and continue to damage his marriage, I don't know that I would ever say you have to talk about that piece with her. Look, almost all relationships have some form of secrets.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to say we don't, right? But the truth is, you know, a lot of people are sitting on stuff they don't want to talk about. And it doesn't, you know, and if the thing you're sitting on is going to destroy a person that you love, I don't know that
it's not always the best idea to bring it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is honesty really the best policy?
Does it have anything to do with what's currently going on in your relationship? And yeah.
No, that's why it was so profound when Amy said it, because everybody thinks
I know
the old age-old honesty is the best policy. They deserve to know. But she wasn't, I mean, she didn't even hesitate.
I know. And I was like, what?
The question was like, what do you do if your husband cheats? She was like, I don't want to know.
Don't fucking tell me.
I don't want to know at all. I don't want you to ruin my day going to yoga and doing my shit because of your fuck up.
Because I know. I was like floored by that, and it made me completely rethink. Like, God damn it, because I am immediately the one that's like, you have to tell me.
Well, no, that makes me feel good. That like for Rachel to be, I was worried that Rachel would be like, nope, we're calling the wife in tomorrow, and we're telling her together, and she's gonna know.
No, I love Rachel's answer.
I think you just have to play that.
Yes.
Like, every situation's different, and what's the purpose? Like, if the purpose is just to make you feel better, no. Go sit with your shit.
No,
like,
there's
stay out there with what you did.
I would challenge any person in any relationship, regardless of tenure and stability. Tell me you don't have anything you haven't kept from your spouse that, like, I mean, it's impossible. There's nobody that's going to be like, nope.
and lots of people have,
regardless of how little, I mean, it's, yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's a lot of it's case by case basis.
Yeah.
Look, I truly do believe that, like, I will, if it's within my power to not say always or never, because there are exceptions to everything.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Me and Randall are pretty gross about that.
But if that's what you're sitting with, so if this listener's like, do I tell my wife? No, my recommendation is to go find a therapist for yourself and work through that. Like, before you do that, go talk to someone. Talk to someone who could help you really take that apart and decide if that's the best decision for you. Like, I don't know this person, so I'm not going to say,
sure,
I have the absolute answer, but I think that's the place where you can figure out what the right answer for yourself is. Yeah,
no, it says it all. But I wanted to tell you that we had a couple recommendations for your next appearance on here.
Oh,
and both of them related to porn again.
Boy, this is the topic, huh?
Yeah, that they we had two people write in that said they wanted to be able to ask questions about different genres of porn and your thoughts about the ramifications that those can have on the people involved in that genre. So we'll just narrow that down to like genres of porn.
Jesus, the whole episode. I mean,
no, and we had some that wanted to talk again about different sex toys.
Okay.
So we could just do another porn/toys.
No, okay.
If Rachel's down with that.
Always talk about those topics with me. I mean, we'll end up repeating some of our. They're all gonna know all my lines about everything by the time we're done. I mean.
Well, I'm hoping that they're a little. I'll weed through them and try to get as fresh as possible. That we haven't answered.
Good gracious.
Well, we've already got one that, Jody B's got a great question. I want to save it for that one because since that's going to be the topic.
I'm surprised he doesn't just send me these on his own. Rachel, I have a question for you.
He really is. I think he's good about trying to save it for our episodes.
Yeah, he's just such a big podcast fan. He doesn't want to steal the thunder.
Very respectful of
But he and I chat sometimes, so I'm sort of just waiting for him. Like, hey, I have a question for you.
No, we love old Jody B. He's the shit.
Not shy. Yeah, I think he's really is trying to be respectful, I guess, of our episodes with you.
And I appreciate the fact that he helps us fill this time, and he respects my time outside of this. I do appreciate that. but it's just funny because I'm like, we've chatted about other stuff. Like, why didn't you just ask me that one?
He's full of questions.
Yeah,
Inquisitive one.
As being a host, he loves to ask questions.
He's so great.
Yes.
But yeah, that puts us at about
Look,
an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's always a thing. And I might even say, like, let's expand this a little bit to if anybody's got anything about not just necessarily porn or even the genres of porn, but if you have questions about kink topics, you know, whether it's BDSM or other sort of things that are under the umbrella, as, you know, Isis and Eros were talking about, things that are within that umbrella that you have questions about.
Erotica.
I don't know what BDSM is. Is that sadomasochism?
Anything erotica.
What's BD?
Oh, I have no idea what it stands for.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about that. You can ask me that next time. I won't answer it now.
I know what the SM stands for, I think, but okay.
Yeah, so if there's any of those sort of questions,
Perfect.
And some of that stuff comes up in toy questions too. But
that's part
I'll
of the lifestyle umbrella, right?
Yeah, it's
the Priory Society. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our like toe in the door after you. That was like our ankle in the door.
Yeah, they took it one step further. Yeah. And the truth is anything that I can't answer, you know, there's people out there who can, and I can connect people to the people who have all the answers.
And that's half the battle of being a leader in anything, is knowing who can answer a question properly and getting those people together. Problem solving.
And, you know, and just having resources and finding information. And we've done that for a couple of different people about things that if I don't have the answer on the spot, I'll find it. I'll forward it out.
So like kinky topics, like whatever BDSM is, and fetishes. Like,
yeah, any of those kinds of things that you have questions about, like, because a lot of that stuff shows up in porn.
Right.
Oh,
like,
sure.
like that whole, and that's that whole lifestyle umbrella that we talked about with our, Eros and Iris. Like, there's so much under there. Like, so much that I didn't even understand. There,
which is why I'm not shocked that this comes up a lot. Like, this is if you know, like, you know, oh wait, somebody will actually answer this question for me.
Yeah, and you're knowledgeable on that subject, so
yeah, and you know, even I acknowledge that having been out of the, you know, the sex education and the toy field for a little while, being wrapped up in the therapy piece, you know, there's new stuff and stuff happening that I may not be on top of, and I'm willing to be like, oh, let me check in with some of the people that I know who are still in the midst of this, who can give good answers, because that stuff's changing and, you know, opening up all the time. Like, if there is something that turns you on, I promise there are other people that have the same thing.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
Well, I am down. We'll put it in our calendar for 4 weeks from now, whatever that day is.
That signal. Yeah, whatever the third Monday from... Shit, what is the third Monday in October? Hang on.
That's the 15th.
Thank you.
It's the 15th. So. Perfect. Sounds good.
October
beautiful.
15th. We'll talk about kinky shit.
Yeah, we'll tag in what's the cover page thing that you always put out?
Yeah, we've recorded like 3 episodes in the
she
past
knows the drill.
day.
She knows.
Yep,
Yeah.
I got the drill down.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Rachel's our third co-host, so she knows the drill.
Well, you know we appreciate you, Rachel. You're the best.
Oh, I love hanging out with you guys. It's always a good time.
We love you.
We'll holla at you later.
Okay, sounds good. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.